You know how sometimes life just throws you a curveball when it changes everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And trust me, I'm still kind of processing it all, even as I type this out. It's hard to put into words, honestly. The whirlwind of emotions, the shock, the disbelief, and then this incredible sense of purpose I never saw coming. I read so many of your stories here about people finding their footing after being knocked down or seeing a path they never imagined, and I always wondered if I'd ever have something truly profound to share. Turns out, I did, and it all unfolded in a single mind-bending day that felt like a lifetime. It started like any other Tuesday, really. I was at Carter Tech, doing my usual cleaning rounds, pushing my cart through those sleek, quiet hallways. The air always felt so charged in that place, like every single brain cell was firing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'd seen the CEO, Richard Carter, a few times in passing, always looking intense, always in a hurry. But that day was different. There was this buzz, a low hum of panic almost, coming from the main development lab. Usually I just keep my head down, do my job, and try not to disturb anyone. But the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Okay, I have the premise. This sounds like a powerful story of overcoming obstacles and unexpected connections. I will now write the first two paragraphs, keeping all your detailed instructions in mind. I hesitated for a second, my hand on the cleaning cart handle, but my curiosity just pulled me in. I spent years studying engineering, even if I couldn't finish because of money. So seeing all these super smart people, 20 of them apparently, totally stumped by something, well, it just piqued my interest. I edged closer, trying to look busy, wiping down a nearby wall panel, while secretly craning my neck to see the monitors. They had lines of code splashed across huge screens, and I could tell from the frantic pointing and muttered curses that this wasn't some minor glitch. It was a wall, a really big one, stopping everything. My eyes quickly scanned the mess of data and the error messages flashing. It was pretty obvious to me, almost instantly, where the bottleneck was. The one tiny line of code that was causing the whole system to freeze. It wasn't about complex algorithms or deep-rooted infrastructure. It was a simple, logical misstep. Before I could even think, almost instinctively, I blurted out, "It's a data type mismatch, right there," pointing vaguely at one of the screens. The entire room went silent, and every single head, including Richard Carter's, snapped towards me. My heart just hammered against my ribs, suddenly realizing what I'd done. Richard, who was standing closest, looked at me with this mix of utter confusion and honestly a bit of annoyance. Here I was, the cleaning lady, telling his team of high-paid experts what the problem was. It was so out of place, I know. He probably thought I was either completely delusional or just trying to get attention. His eyebrows were practically at his hairline. But then one of the engineers, the one who looked the most frazzled, nervously typed something into the keyboard, and the whole room collectively gasped. The error message vanished. Just like that. The silence that followed wasn't awkward anymore, it was more like stunned awe. Richard's expression completely transformed, from disbelief to this intense, almost calculating look. He walked right up to me, and for a second, I thought I was going to get fired on the spot for interfering. Instead, he just stared at me, really looked at me, for what felt like an eternity. He asked me my name, where I learned about code, and when I told him I had studied engineering but couldn't finish, his eyes widened a little. Then, out of nowhere, he told me to ditch the cleaning cart and join the team. Not as an engineer, but as an observation assistant. I was completely floored. So, there I was, the cleaning lady, sitting in a meeting room, notepad in hand, surrounded by these incredibly intelligent people, and I felt this strange mix of exhilaration and complete awkwardness. Richard just said, "Valentina, tell us what you see." And it wasn't about solving everything on the spot anymore. It was about my perspective. When they hit another wall, which they did pretty quickly, I'd just point out the obvious logical gaps, the places where their technical deep dive had missed a simpler, foundational issue. I'd explain it not in their jargon, but in plain terms, like I was explaining it to my sister. What started happening was pretty wild. My way of looking at things, simpler, more intuitive, almost like stepping back and seeing the whole forest instead of just the trees, started clicking for them. It wasn't just about fixing bugs, it was about shifting their whole mindset. And beyond the tech stuff, my presence, someone from outside their corporate bubble, seemed to, well, soften things up a bit. The tension in the room lessened, people started talking more openly, even laughing sometimes. It was like I accidentally brought a bit of humanity into that incredibly rigid, high-pressure world, and it felt surprisingly good to be part of it. Everything was actually going really well, better than I could have ever imagined. We were making real progress on the project, and I felt like I was finally using my brain in a way that truly mattered, not just cleaning up after brilliant minds, but actually contributing to their work. But then, as always happens when things get too good, the outside world decided to butt in. Someone, I still don't know who, leaked the story to the media. Suddenly it was everywhere.
Cleaning lady without a degree works on $1 billion project. It wasn't just a headline. It felt like a judgment. The articles were full of snarky comments implying it was a gimmick or that I was some kind of fraud. It wasn't about my intelligence or what I was actually doing. It was all about the cleaning lady part and the no degree part. It hit me hard. I felt incredibly disrespected, like everything I'd contributed, every single idea, was being trivialized because of my background. The irony was, I'd always known my worth, even when I was pushing that cleaning cart. But seeing it twisted like that in public just broke something in me. I couldn't face it anymore, so I just resigned. Temporarily, I thought at the time. My phone just kept buzzing with messages from Richard, but I ignored them all. I felt a real sting, like a betrayal almost, because none of them had stepped up to defend me in public when those articles came out. I just wanted to disappear, to go back to being invisible, where my background didn't matter more than my brain. I spent a few days just trying to figure out what was next, feeling this hollow ache of disappointment and honestly, a bit of anger. I guess I had started to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. Then one evening, there was a knock on my door. And standing there, looking surprisingly disheveled and stressed, was Richard Carter. My jaw probably hit the floor. He usually looked so put together, so in control, but not then. He looked lost. He came right out and said the company was a mess without me, that they were stuck again, but it wasn't just about the work. He admitted he'd missed my insights, my different way of seeing things, and more surprisingly, just having me around. He said he needed me back, not as an assistant, but to lead a crucial presentation to big Silicon Valley investors. It was a huge deal, and a massive gamble for him. I stared at him, trying to read his face, and then
told him my condition. If I came back, it would be as an equal. No more observation assistant titles, and with the respect my intelligence deserved. He didn't even hesitate. He just nodded. The day of the presentation in Silicon Valley felt like walking into another world. The room was packed with these intimidating investors, all sharp suits and even sharper questions. My heart was pounding, but something just clicked when I started talking. I didn't try to be someone I wasn't. I just explained our vision, the tech, and what it meant for real people using the same simple language I'd used with Richard's team. I could see their expressions change from skeptical to genuinely interested, then to excited. It wasn't just about the numbers. It was about the passion, the belief in what we were building. When they announced a $50 million investment, the entire room erupted. It was a dizzying moment, one where I finally felt completely validated, not just by Richard, but by everyone who had doubted me.
Richard looked at me, a huge, genuine smile on his face, and there was something new in his eyes, something beyond professional respect. Later that evening, after the adrenaline had died down and we were just celebrating quietly, something shifted between us. It was like all the barriers, all the titles just melted away. There was this unspoken understanding, a connection that had been building, and in that moment, it just made sense. We leaned in, and it happened. A kiss that felt like the start of something totally unexpected. That kiss, it felt like a promise, like the closing of a door on one chapter and the start of a completely new one. I went home that night on a cloud, replaying every moment, feeling this lightness I hadn't felt in years. But then the next morning, everything changed. Richard was suddenly different, cold, distant. The warmth we'd shared, the easy conversation, it was all gone, replaced by this rigid, professional barrier. He barely
Me, and when he did, it was like looking at a stranger again. It was like the personal connection, the raw emotion of that kiss completely overwhelmed him, and he just shut down. It hurt deep down more than the media scandal ever could, because this wasn't about a title or a degree. This was about him, about us, and the moment we'd shared. It felt like a massive slap in the face, a rejection not just of my feelings, but of the very idea that someone like me could actually connect with someone like him on that level. It wasn't about fear of commitment. I felt it was about his inability to embrace something real and unexpected, a kind of cowardice that just broke my heart. I couldn't work like that, pretending nothing had happened, constantly feeling this wall between us. So, for the second time, but this time for good, I resigned. I just couldn't stay. I thought that was it. Done. Over. I packed up my few things from the office, feeling this profound sadness, like I was burying something really special that had just barely had a chance to bloom. I went back to my old routine, trying to convince myself it was for the best, that I deserved someone who wasn't afraid of what we had. But something felt different this time. The world just seemed a bit dimmer. The colors not as vibrant. The passion I'd found for tech, the thrill of solving problems, it was all still there, but without that connection, without him, it just felt incomplete. Then, about a month later, something absolutely insane happened. My sister, Sophia, was graduating from college, and we were all there celebrating, feeling so proud. The ceremony was winding down, and everyone was getting ready to leave, when suddenly Richard appeared on stage. My jaw dropped. He looked straight at me, his voice booming over the microphone, and he just confessed everything. He talked about being scared, about not knowing how to handle something so real and unexpected, about realizing he literally couldn't function
Without me. He got down on one knee, right there in front of hundreds of people, and asked me to marry him. I was completely stunned, tears just streaming down my face. It was the most surreal moment of my life, accepting him right there in front of everyone. All the hurt, all the confusion, it just melted away in the face of his honesty and vulnerability. It was a crazy, messy, beautiful way to propose, and it was perfectly us. After that day, everything felt right, like the universe had finally clicked into place. We got married a few months later, a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by the people who truly mattered. It wasn't about proving anything to the world anymore. It was about building something real, together. And that's exactly what we did. We decided pretty quickly that we wanted to create something that wasn't just about making money, but about making a difference, especially for people who might have been in situations like mine. So we started a new company, Code from the Heart. The idea was simple: provide tech education to underserved communities. Really break down those barriers that stop talented people from pursuing their dreams just because of where they came from or what their background was. It felt like the perfect culmination of our journey, a symbol of everything we'd learned and overcome, both personally and professionally. I know this might sound a bit wild, like something out of a movie, but I swear every single bit of it happened. Looking back, that day at Carter Tech, when I just blurted out that little solution, it felt like the universe tilted on its axis just for me. It was so unexpected,
So completely out of the blue, this entire whirlwind of events unfolding from one tiny, impulsive moment. Even now, thinking about it, I still can't fully explain it. It was like fate or something bigger just decided it was my time, and everything else just followed. It simply was.